Hello and welcome to the Dice Tower. My name is Felipe and today we get to review Spirit Island by Eric Rouse. It's a game for 1 to 4 players that play against the board that is representing some invaders that are trying to settle into the island that you're supposed to defend. You play as a spirit with different powers and you cooperate with the rest of your teammates in order to repel the invaders. It's essentially a game where you get to draft some of the cards available. You start with 4 cards for each spirit, and then you use different actions to either fear and terrorize the invaders or just outright killing them. And it turns the whole concept of settling into an unexplored island into its head. And it's a very interesting and intricate game. So join me as we give a quick overview and I teach you how to play the game, at least the base core of it, and then I'll give you my thoughts on the game as well. This is the initial setup of Spirit Island. I've set up the game for 2 players, and for each player you should take a tile of the map and add it to your general map that you're going to play on. And each tile, there's A, B, and there's also C and D, will have 2 spaces for each land type. So 2 mountains, 2 sands, 2 jungles, and 2 wetlands. And each player will use a spirit. In this example, we're using Vital Strength of the Earth and Lightning Swift Strike. And they will take their player board that describes the general idea of the character, the name, the lore, the setup. In this case, for example, Vital Strength of the Earth would start with 3 tokens, 2 on the highest mountain of their board and 1 in the highest numbered jungle. So something like this. The highest numbered jungle is this one, and the highest mountain would be this one. Okay? And for the purpose of the setup, each spirit will settle in one of the tiles. So in this game, for example, the Vital Strength would take the B space, that there is the one down here, and to the north we would have the presences of the tokens of the Lightning Swift Strike. So this one's over here. And both players are trying to team up to get rid of all the invaders on both sides of the map, but they would start with their presences on just one of the sides of the map. If you would have a third or fourth player, then the map would be even bigger, but they would only start with their initial presences on their side of the map. Okay, so after you've done the setup and you've read the playstyle for the characters, and I picked these 2 characters because I find that they're both the 2 most powerful out of the 4 low complexity characters. So this is why I've chosen this one. But for your first game, you should start with any of the 4 low complexity characters. And you can see that there's also a summary of your powers. And then this is the player base that or the player card that you're going to look at for most of the game. And essentially, you win at the start of the game if you get rid of all of the invaders. And you lose if the island gets too blighted. For the setup, you should shuffle all of the fear cards and then add 3 of them, like this. Then you should add the terror level 3 on top of the fear cards, then add 3 more, then add terror level number 2, and then add 3 more. This is going to be the fear deck, and you will see in a moment what that means. At the start of the game, you win if you get rid of all the invaders. But as you advance the fear deck, then your victory condition is going to be easier to achieve, because next time you'll just have to get rid of all the cities and towns. And if you advance to the level 3, then only the towns. And if you advance all of the fear deck, then you just win by fear, which is great. And the main way you lose is if all the island gets blighted. And this is represented by the blight over here. Each player will add 5 blight to the starting blight that you will stack here. So in this case 10 blight. You can play with a blight card, although if it's your first time you shouldn't, because it makes the game harder. But some blight cards will have a different number of blights for this space. If at any given time during the game this space runs out of blight, then you lose the game. And that's just how the way it works. So you win if you achieve these, you lose if you run out of blight here. That's the general idea. So how does the game develop? At the start of the game, you should add a presence, which are these tokens, on top of each of these numbers in both rows, just leaving a free space at the leftmost of each of these two rows. And each row is different for each character, so please keep that in mind, because if you play with other players, they might have different numbers. And the flow of the game is that you first reveal the top card of the invader deck, and you explore in this space. For example, in this example, you would place an invader here, an invader here, an invader here, and an invader here. Invaders will only explore in a territory that's either next to an already populated place that already has a town or a city, or a territory that is adjacent to the ocean, to the coast, which would be this place right here and this place over here. So if there's no settlements nearby, then they wouldn't get to explore. And then you start the game after you've moved this card over here. That's the start. At this point, each player gets to do the following actions. First, you do the growth, and growth means that you get to do one of these three actions. For example, in this character's case, you could either add a presence, which means to take one of the tokens here and add it to the map at the range shown here. You can also gain energy. For example, in this case, you gain 2 energy, and the energy you get from the reserve, and you get it, and this is going to be the currency for you to pay for your cards. You can gain a power card, which means adding a card from the minor power or the major power cards to your deck, and these cards will essentially make your deck a little bit better. They will provide an effect, and we'll go through what the cards do in a moment. And you can also reclaim cards, which means take all of the cards that you've played in previous turns and return them to your hand. And as you can see, the growth options for each character are different. So please have that in mind as well. This game is very asymmetrical, as you can start telling by the amount of things that each character has. And after you've gone through the growth option, then you gain energy, and you gain the energy that's shown in this number. So for example, in this case, this character would gain 1 red and one energy that you would place here. And for example, if you've already placed more presences through the add presence action, then at the stage of the gain energy, you would gain 2 instead of 1. And then you can play the number of cards equal to the card plays that you have in this row. For example, this character at the start of the game would only be able to play 1 card, but if you start adding the presences from this row, eventually you will be able to play 2, and there 3, and finally 4 cards per turn. And so you should have a balance between adding presences and doing the other actions, so that you can start developing your rows over here. Also, each character has a special rule, and in the case of this character, the places where you have a sanctuary, and a sanctuary essentially means 2 presences in the same spot, will have 3 defense. And they also have an innate power, which is an effect close to or similar to the one of a card, and you can see the effect over here. Now, this icon are represented in each of the cards, and each character starts with 4 different cards that you can see in the card back that they belong to this character. And each of these cards will have a few icons in this left column. And if you have the number required, then you can activate their inner strength. Also, the cards have the cost here, and this is the cost of energy. that you're required to pay in order to play them, the speed, the range, and the target of the land that you want to play. And then this is the effect. For the speed of the card, that's very important in this game. So after you gain energy, you choose and pay for each power that you're going to play. That means the cost of the cards in terms of energy. And then you will resolve the effects of the fast actions or the fast cards, which are the ones represented by this bird. And some of the effects are going to be very powerful if you can play them at this speed. For example, a Year of Perfect Stillness will make invaders skip all actions in target land this turn. Obviously, this only works if you go before the invaders. Other cards will have slower effects that are more powerful even, but they will only resolve after you've played through the Invader Phase. So the Invader Phase essentially works this way. First, you resolve the effect of the Blight card, which we're not having for this example. Then you resolve the Fear cards. If you've revealed the Fear card, and I'm going to tell you how that works in a second, then you would resolve the Fear cards, and then the invaders get to Ravage. During the first turn, they don't Ravage because there's no card here yet. Then they would get to build, and building essentially means that each place that already has an invader builds a town, unless there are more towns than city there, in which case they will build a city. So, for example, in this case, they would build a town here because they only have a settler. They would build a town here because they already have a city. But in this place, they have more towns than cities, so they would actually build a city. And that's how building works. And finally, they would get to explore a different place. So, in this case, they would explore the jungle, and they would place an invader there, one there, and they will also get one invader there and one invader there. So, after you've done that, and they are done exploring, you advance the invader cards. So you place this one here, and then during the next turn, they will ravage the sandland, they will build on the jungle, and they will explore in a place that you don't know yet. For the example, in this case, just so that you learn how to play, for the Ravage effect, essentially what happens is that first the invaders deal damage to both the land and the Dahan. The skinny guys deal 1 damage, the towns deal 2, and the cities deal 3. If the land receives 2 or more damage, they get blighted. So for example here, they would get a blight, or here, because they're ravaging the sands. And you check all the places along the map. So for example here, they will deal only 1 damage, they will deal only 1 damage here, so that's not enough to ravage, but they will deal 1 damage here. Also, the Dahan fight back, but they only fight back if they survive. So, for example, let's say, just for the sake that they're ravaging here. In this example, they will deal 3 damage, and the Dahan can only take 2 damage. So this Dahan would die, and they are no longer able to fight back. But if they would ravage here, then the Dahan takes only 1 damage, and because they survive, they can now deal 2 damage to this invader, and they would kill him. Anytime that a land that's already been blighted gets ravaged, and that place takes 2 damage, there's a cascade effect. You would add 1 more blight here, but you would also need to take another blight and place it somewhere on the map adjacent to this place. So you would, for example, add a blight here. If you add a blight at a place that has already been blighted, then that place cascades as well. And remember, if you ever run out of blights here, you lose the game. How can you deal with that? There are several ways. There will be card effects that will defend land, that will displace the invaders from where they are planning to either build or ravage, and know that you know this in advance. You know where they are going to ravage or build, so you can plan ahead and displace them to places they're no they are not going to take actions. You can defend the places where they are going to ravage, and remember that in the sanctuaries where this spirit is, that you already are defending for 3. Also know that your card effect will either deal damage or will displace the invaders. If you deal 2 damage to a town, you destroy it, and you also, as stated here, destroying a town will generate 1 fear, and destroying a city will generate 2 fear. Once you've generated the fear equal to all the fear tokens that you have in this board, and you place them all down here, you will get 1 fear card. The fear card you will get here, and the next time you get to the fear stage during the invader phase, you will resolve the fear card. The fear card has 3 stages, and the effect that you resolve is going to be according to the terror level where you're at. So the further you are at the terror level, the more powerful the fear card effect is going to be. And that's essentially how you play. Remember that each time you gain power cards, you're going to draw cards from either the minor or the major power card deck. And the major power card deck essentially has more powerful cards, but at a much higher energy cost, or they have some strong drawbacks. So you have to have established strategy and energy income before you start picking cards from the major power deck. Also, whenever you pick a major power deck card, you'll have to forget, that means get rid of one of the initial cards that you had in your at your disposal. And after the invader phase, you will then resolve the slow effects or the turtle effects. So for example, in this case, you would resolve this card because it's a slow effect, and you would deal 2 damage after the invaders have gone through all of their actions. After all that, time passes, and then it's the next turn. You do all over again until you either get rid of all of the invaders, or you run out of blight and you lose. And that's the general overview of Spirit Island. That was a general overview of how to play and how to set up Spirit Island. It's a game that has a lot to take in. It's not an easy teach, but as you can tell, it has a lot going for it. First of all, the game is very asymmetrical in the sense that all the 8 spirits that come with the core box are very special. They have unique powers, they have unique energy costs, and they play out very differently. So that's something that's very interesting, and something that you will really appreciate if you have a play group where each player wants to specialize on something different. It offers that variety of experiences and strategies, and as when you start combining the different spirits that the game has to offer, you will tell that different strategies show up, and that there are several ways of winning the game that are not intuitive, or that you can't just tell from the first time you play it. And I think that's fantastic. Also, the game comes with a lot of modular experiences. There are 3 special powers or traits for the invaders that can increase the difficulty quite a bit. And there's also 2 blight cards that you can add to the blight stage to make the blight effects slightly different than when you start spreading the blight. They will tell you that the island is no longer healthy, it becomes polluted, and then the game will do something slightly different, or something that will hindrance your progress during the game. And I think that all of those components are really great. You usually have that when you buy an expansion, and in Spirit Island you get right in the core box those experiences. So it's a lot of game. It's very deep. It grants you with a lot of options and customization, which is something that I really appreciate. There's a few drawbacks. Mainly 2 for me. The first one is that it's hard to teach. It's a game that requires some commitment. You won't be able to teach it to several people at the same time, because the turn structure means that each player is playing at the same time and playing their cards and using their growth option at the same time. So teaching to several players at the same time can be a little bit chaotic, and that's something that I have had some issues with while teaching several players at the same time. because it's an asymmetrical game, so you will have to teach each player their core strengths and weaknesses, and for each player those will be different, so that makes it hard as well. And also it's a game that it's too hard the first time you play it, and I think that the core difficulty of the game, if you play without the invaders traits and without the blight card, it can still be a little bit too difficult. So it requires a little bit of commitment because of those two issues. It's hard to teach, and it's the base difficulty can be too high, and because of that, it can become hard to get a playgroup of Spirit Island. That's something that's true. However, if you can beat those two difficulties, you will be granted such a beautiful, such a well-crafted and balanced game that you can play and experience in so many different ways that I really, really appreciate, and I have high praises for Spirit Island. Just the core box alone, it's such a good game that is beautifully made so that you can play with different strategies, try out different things, and all of them work. You can really appreciate how much time they put into developing all of the characters and all of the different invader traits in such a way that you can explore different strategies and they all work out perfectly. Because of that, I'm really passionate about Spirit Island. It's a game that I keep coming back. I like it more at fewer player counts. Actually, the most fun I've had with playing Spirit Island is playing just my girlfriend and me, but playing at 4-player count is also very fun, very challenging, and it's a different experience. And both of those experiences are fun. So that is why I believe that Spirit Island is a great game. It's probably either top 1 or top 3 among my cooperative game experiences. So that is why I'm going to give Spirit Island a 9, which is the highest grade I have ever given a game in the Dice Tower. However, I feel that Spirit Island is definitely deserving of high praises and the Seal of Excellence. So for that reason, I really, really recommend you check out Spirit Island. Just the core box, it's enough, but the game has 2 expansions and both of them are great. So check it out. I'm really looking forward to your comments down below. And for more reviews, this was Felipe Valdivia, and you're watching the Dice Tower.